warm welcome and good evening from India FinTech Forum. I'm Srinivasanji, and today we have with us Mr. Anshuman Panwar, a fintech industry veteran with over 10 years of experience spanning across sales and marketing, consulting, analytics, investment banking, and currently he's in the role of co-founder of Creditas, a neo collections platform. Welcome to India FinTech Forum, Mr. Anshuman. We hope to have a great session filled with insightful thoughts about this innovative product.
Pleasure to be here with you guys. Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Sure. Uh, Moving on to the questions, Anshuman, it's been 8 years since the Creditas Solutions has now come into the picture. Recently, the product Ethira had also won an innovation for financial sector enterprise category. And also the company has been awarded Business World Techtors and Startup of the Year award in the last 5 years. What exactly does Creditas serve to the market and how did this idea begin?
Okay, cool. What we essentially do is provide essentially a collection solution on the retail side, and we can call it empathetic collections. So I'll sort of maybe go into the genesis of the idea per se. So about quite some time back, when we looked at collections, so our sort of intro into collections essentially started in the UK when we were working with a UK-based fund. One of the things that we sort of realized in collections in UK and more so in India is the fact that collections by its very nature is a very sort of, it's a very frictious sort of, I will say, process as such, right? Wherein essentially somebody owes money to someone and the other person is chasing them to get money back, right? Now, the problem that essentially happens there is twofold. First of all, I think most people generally don't want to sort of be delinquent, but most of the reasons of delinquency tend to be have to do with, I will say, financial sort of stress that people are undergoing, that they've lost a job or some form of financial stress that they are sort of seeing, right? Because at the time of a loan being sanctioned or card being sanctioned, the bank has, or the lender has done entire due diligence that, okay, this person can repay and everything, right? But sometimes in life, obviously, certain things sort of change, circumstances change, and you have circumstantial issues. How typically lenders sort of go about collections, and this is not just in India, everywhere in the world, is essentially you will say, okay, I have 100 sort of customers, for example, who are behind in their payments. So you sort of give it to some call center agent to call on them, or you have field force or field agents go visit, knock on their doors and get money back, right? Now, first of all, I think the entire process tends to be extremely, as I said, frictious in the nature, in the sense that somebody is calling you and sort of pretty much saying, give me money. I don't care whatever stress you have, don't have. And at times, all kinds of coercive sort of and embarrassing sort of, not embarrassing as much as coercive, and I think all kinds of pressures are also put on customers, wherein, you know, customers, neighbors are called at times, calls made to customer's office, his boss, his juniors, his or her juniors. So all kinds of sort of practices exist, right? So the idea of the platform is that essentially, and if, the other thing is that essentially, if you look at it, the person who's making a call or who's visiting your office or your home address is actually a sort of a person at a 15,000 rupee salary, right? Effectively, and the guys who are sort of, in a sense, behind in delinquency probably earn more than that anyways to begin with. And that conversation itself tends to be extremely negative in nature. So the idea was, can sort of we take the negativity out of it, in the sense by making it more of a digital sort of interaction, wherein you reach out to the customers digitally, get the customer to sort of interact with the bank completely digitally, let's say in the form of a web portal as such, within the customer sort of just has to log in, can look at, okay, this is my outstanding right now, this is what I have to pay. If I don't pay, these are the consequences. If I pay, these are the benefits. And sort of give them options of how do you come out of the delinquency or the sort of financial stress the customer is in. What that also does from a customer perspective is give them a feeling of being in charge of their own destiny, right? Because you're effectively, you're getting options there that, okay, I can't pay this much, can I pay this much? And then you're sort of doing this as opposed to doing a human interaction, it's on a screen. So you can't really get angry with the screen as such, right? Max to max, if you have any query or some issue, then you can sort of raise a query and that can be handled directly within the bank or within the lender, right? Sort of the lender can sort of just respond back that okay, you can't pay 10,000 rupees, maybe you can pay 8,000 for 3 months and then come to a 10,000 sort of payment arrangement after 3 months, right? So that was the idea, that essentially take all of it out. I think that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is obviously that if you look at technology as such, it is all pervasive, and we have seen technology sort of come in pretty much every facet of our lives. And obviously the fintech industry is booming. People are sort of investing a lot in it. But one of the things that we've never seen sort of technology being used for was collections as such. So we said, hey, a lot of these technologies anyways exist, right? Digital and all. Can we make a use case specifically for collections as such, right? Everybody is doing lending. But there is value in sort of trying to solve for this particular problem as well. Because, okay, even if you lend digitally to the customer, then you want to collect also digitally, right? You can't really just have a broken experience. So I think these were the 2-3 things. The other thing, obviously, digitally, you can, from a lender perspective, you can reach out to your entire portfolio of accounts, right? Whereas if, let's say, you have 10,000 accounts and you have to reach out to them using manual intervention, either having field force or collection agents, then over a month you will do some maths and figure out, hey, for 10,000 customers, maybe I need 100 call center agents plus field force. Whereas here, effectively, on a click of a button, you can actually communicate with all 10,000 simultaneously, right? So it brings in efficiencies to the system as well, beside being, more empathetic. And what we have also seen is you are able to drive much better outcomes, both for the customer as well as for the lender. From a customer perspective, if you look at it, what happens typically in a human interaction is that there'll be a guy at the other end of the phone saying, you owe me 2 lakhs, but one lakh में हम नक्की करते हैं, and we will sort of do a settlement and 1 lakh rupees, which is fine. Now the customer might be able to pay slightly higher, but the agent is not really incentivized that much. He's saying, okay, I have to collect, and that's it. I have to fill my quota. Okay, you're paying 1 lakh, somebody else I'll take 50,000, somebody else I'll take 20,000 from my quota is done, right? That's one. From a customer perspective, that also ends up being wrong, because I think there are impacts of doing settlement as well, that it gets flagged as a settlement on one's credit report. Therefore, in future, if you want a new loan or credit, it becomes that much more difficult. Or even if you are able to access that credit in the future, the rate of interest will be far higher. So, whereas on the portal, all those solutions are provided that, if somebody is saying 1 lakh, if you pay, instead of paying 2 lakh completely, at 1.5 lakhs, you can get better outcomes, right? Your problem can be solved. You just have to maybe pay slightly extra. Otherwise, it's okay. You can do it 1 lakh. At some point, you'll have to come and deal with this problem, and you'll have to pay 50,000 later, any which ways. So that's, I think, the benefits of the portal as such, and that's how we sort of got into it. Yeah, it's extremely niche, but we just thought it's a problem and a pain point of an industry that is often overlooked. If people look at collections, people will always think of it as being, effectively garbage cleaning, right? Kuda kachra wala kaam hai. It's not something that is, I will say, super sexy, or something that people really. And if you look at collections, I mean, the images that it conjures up will be all negative images, right? But there's a right way of doing things, and we can do it right way. And I think the industry is pretty big enough any which ways. So yeah.
Pretty fair enough, sir. As a person coming from banking industry myself, I understand that collections, when done offline itself, proves to be a nightmare for people. But
Yes.
when things are done with AI, how effective are they when coming to understand human emotions and responding based on the same?
See, the whole idea of sort of Ethera is that you sort of dealing human emotions somewhere, right? Because ultimately what happens is that's a whole problem of collections, right? Because somebody has a pressure that I have to deliver X number of collections in a day or in a month. So there's always pressure, and you know how organizations work. So the guy at the front end who's calling a customer will have a team leader who will be breathing down his neck and shouting at them, and then the team leader will have a manager on top who will be breathing down his or her neck, and then there'll be a senior manager above this particular manager, and then there'll be AVP, VP, and all of that, right? So the idea is to sort of take out human emotions in a sense, because then you can have much rational outcomes, essentially, right? So even for a customer, if you're able to sort of just explain on a screen, okay, this is your outstanding, these are the benefits that accrue to you if you sort of pay it off. If you pay it off in full, if you pay it off in, if you do a settlement, these are the benefits, but there'll be certain negatives as well. So it's a more informed sort of choice as such, right? And you are able to sort of, in a sense, take out all the negativity out of it. So yeah, the whole idea is to take out all, and if there is a need for sort of human interaction, then the customers always have a option of sort of requesting for a callback or putting in their whatever queries they have, and somebody can attend to them. But the idea being the technology, you can reach out to your entire portfolio at on a click of a button, and 70% of it can get resolved anyways, or 80% and 20%. Okay, fine, you need some manual intervention. Okay, you can do that.
Also, sir, while going through the portal, the Why Us segment, one very specific word caught my eye, which is futurism, which
Yeah.
seems to be pretty affiliated with the tech industry. But what made Creditas like deliver the same to its customers and make it one of its key goals?
I think when we talk about futurism, what we're saying is that collections as an industry, from a tech perspective, has not evolved as such, right, world over. It's very, very basic, and the reason is because it's unsexy, and you don't really have. I mean, it's not somebody who's doing a startup. The first thing in fintech will be collections, not to be the absolute last thing that one will look at. The sexier, good parts are sort of underwriting, reaching, building business and stuff. But this is, as I said, sort of like garbage collection. Yeah, you might have a nice house, but you have to clean garbage every day, right? You have to pretty much have the house cleaned every day, and it's necessary activity. So from that aspect, and as I said, futurism for us is that, okay, there are a lot of technologies which exist, and we are not really reinventing the wheel. We are just using those technologies for one particular use case of collections, and there is value to be accrued and sort of driven out of it, both for lenders, for customers, for everyone in the ecosystem as such, right? As you rightly said, that collections for all lenders tends to be an extremely, I will say, a nightmare from a compliance perspective, right? Because you never know, some agency somewhere might do something or behave in an extremely wrong way with the customer, and it can sort of blow up in the papers and stuff. And all of these things keep coming out any which ways. Every 6 months, there's some issue with some lender or something which blows up in some newspaper somewhere, right? So banks are cognizant of it, and that's why they are embracing it as well. That no, this is extremely important for us, and especially the larger the portfolios you have, the more important it becomes, right? There is obviously a cost saving, but more than cost saving, I suspect it's more from a compliance perspective that, hey, this is a brilliant this thing that if I have a portfolio of, let's say, 1 lakh delinquent customers for a bank, let's say, every month, you can say, okay, if 70% gets resolved with this, and for 1 lakh I need 1,000 agencies, for example, going forward, if 70-80% gets resolved for this, I just need 20,000 to be resolved manually. Then either I can in-house it, or I can reduce my number of agencies from 1,000 to 100, wherein I can have better oversight. So I think it just helps the entire ecosystem as such.
Got it, sir. Of course, none of the conversations recently can go without COVID. COVID has been a major disruption for all the conventional companies, especially when most banks were like plagued with high NPA levels and collection issues. How did Creditas utilize this opportunity, and how did the vintage provide a competitive advantage over the competitors?
So just incidentally, what happened was Ethera platform as such as a concept was effectively, we had been mulling over it entire 2018, and beginning of or end of 2018, we started approaching banks with the concept that, okay, how to do this digitally. So for us, actually, COVID was, we were one of the industries which sort of, or businesses, I would say, which benefited massively from COVID because of the lockdown and all. So you did not have any agencies working, field force could not work. And banks, obviously, it is, as I said, collections is like house cleaning. So yes, you have to clean the house on a daily basis, any which ways. So as a matter of fact, yeah, I will say adoption of Ethera got a massive boost at the banks and the partners, right? And the other thing was obviously there was nothing flowing to agencies as such, and also entire portfolios ended up residing on this platform at the banks, right? At the bank's end. So the platform, in a sense, could suddenly now work on the entire portfolio. So how that effectively helped was that, okay, earlier, if let's say a bank would have 1 lakh delinquent customers, might put 10,000 on the platform, now they're putting entire 1 lakh there. So the system learns much faster, much quickly. Every interaction that the system does with the customer, it sort of builds out reinforced sort of strategies for the future, right? That, okay, for this customer segment, this strategy works better. So from that perspective, I think our algorithm sort of improved far, far more during this COVID sort of challenge as such. And that was one internally. From an external point of view, obviously banks sort of adopted, and once COVID ended and stuff, I think banks started seeing value of it, and they sort of gone on and sort of looked at scaling this up further within the banks.
Perfect, sir. Now, what does the future growth for Creditas look like? Is it going to be still in the new collections domain, or are we looking to expand more further?
So from our perspective, I think from a future perspective, one of the things we are very clear of is that we are a sort of, in a sense, a tech as a solution provider to banks, right? So we will always be looking at providing solutions. The interesting thing is that essentially we built out a platform wherein customers engage with the bank directly, digitally, right? And are able to repay stuff, right? And with excellent results and massive stickiness as well. So the other sort of, I think, natural area or extension for us might be to sort of look at, okay, fine, Mr. Banks, you're on the business side rather, right? That you can use this platform to actually cross-sell to your customers, upsell to your customers, grow your business as well. It's a technology that resides with you. If it is able to get your delinquent customers to pay, then if you go to the market and sort of reach out to these customers and say, hey, I can give you a loan with a nice customer journey built in, then yeah, the results will be far better, I suppose. So for us, I think one natural extension in India would essentially be, I would say, the acquisition side of things on the platform. The other thing, obviously, that we are looking at is from an international expansion perspective, look at other markets as well to take this platform to. So I think these will be the two big areas for us.
Perfect, Mr. Anshuman. Now we'll like to close with the final question of something about you, because as I can see, you are a person with massive experience on variety of backgrounds. So
Sure.
what has been your major takeaway in your corporate career?
Hey, that's a very tough one. I can't sort of, it's a very big, I suppose, generic thing. See, from more than a corporate career, I can sort of talk about maybe building a business, I suppose. I think two, three things that I can talk about as such for any budding, aspiring entrepreneur per se would be that when you start a business, then you have a particular vision or a view about how the business will evolve. What you figure out once you start a business is that things keep changing and you have to react to circumstances. Certain times things go your way, certain times things do not go your way. What really matters a lot is to sort of be able to, I suppose, acknowledge when certain things you have tried have not worked and not be sort of forlorn or enter a state of despair. Rather, you sort of say, okay, this has not worked, brilliant, excellent for me. I know that I don't need to do this. I need to change it, so you can make changes very fast. So I think the first thing is to be agile, combined with reacting to what the market is sort of teaching you, right? That is extremely important. Second is obviously longevity. The longer you stay, the better sort of, I think you learn much more, right? No matter what you say, it is important. It sort of helps you as a business shape up, right? Because you figure out exactly what works, what doesn't work. So I think these are 2-3 things. Third thing, obviously, the most important thing is obviously to get your core team correct. Uh, I think that is the most important thing there, right? Even if this doesn't work, then you can sort of flip and do things. We've never had, I shouldn't say that, we've not really had to do that in the past, and hopefully don't in the future as well. But at least if you have a core team, then you have that much confidence that you can sort of deliver stuff. So that's about it, I suppose. 2-3 things from a experience perspective that I can think of from an entrepreneurial journey perspective.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Anshuman Panwar. I think it's really useful and helpful for budding entrepreneurs like me, especially looking to aspire to get into the fintech industry.